All right, thank you so much, and good morning. My name is Ole Tastrup. I'm the CEO of 2CureX. I shall try within the next 20-some minutes to show you what 2CureX is all about and hopefully convince you that 2CureX is an interesting investment case. But first, let me, however this works, there you go. Let me present you to the mission of our company. 2CureX want to make a real difference for cancer patients around the world by individualizing treatment. If we dive a little bit further in, I want to show you that by establishing IndiTreat as a global standard for predicting individual cancer patients' response to different drug therapies. So what is this all about? Well, I want to present it to you, the problem we want to solve. The problem is, and you may have seen this before, that in cancer, the drug response is way too low. Here you have a number of drugs in different indications, and these numbers here present the number of patients that do not respond to a specific treatment. So about 70% of the patients are not responding for the first treatment they receive. And how are we going to tackle this problem? Let me show you a small movie that presents how 2CureX wants to do this.
Cancer is often thought of as one disease affecting different parts of the body. But in reality, there are actually more than 100 different types of cancers, and there are more than 400 different drugs and drug combinations available. This makes the task of choosing the right cancer treatment very challenging, and that challenge is reflected in the response rate among patients being treated, which today is around 30%. Often, the oncologist only has one shot at choosing the right treatment, and it usually takes months before they can see any results. This is where IndiTreat can assist. IndiTreat is a method that focuses on finding the perfect treatment for every individual patient. A small sample is taken from the patient tumor. IndiTreat then expands this sample to hundreds of microtumors and tests all available treatments individually. In a matter of days, IndiTreat identifies the effective treatments from the ineffective ones. This is done by measuring the growth of the individual microtumors. An effective treatment will kill the tumor cells, which causes the microtumor to shrink. IndiTreat then presents detailed data on every treatment tested. This helps the oncologist to choose an effective treatment for every individual patient. IndiTreat will increase the number of cancer patients responding to treatment. 2CureX, because cancer patients are individuals.
Now let's then go to real data. So what I present to you here is the result of tests that have been done with several hundred patients. What you see here at the left side is a figure table that shows patients going down and treatments across. The color scheme shows that this patient is highly sensitive, medium, low, and resistant, meaning that the treatment does not work at all. And the only thing you should see from this table is that there is not a single treatment that works in all patients. So this indicates that patients are truly different. And we've just made a blown up of the top level, and you will see exactly that. We do have some high, very intense patients here, very sensitive patients, but we also have some that are resistant. That is what we need to work on. Now, the conclusion of this clinical study is that IndiTreat have, in 58% of the cases, been able to find a treatment to which the patient is highly sensitive. So we have been able to dig up that treatment that works in exactly that patient. And this have to be compared to, this should be compared to the historical number that you were presented with before, namely that only 30% will normally respond. These very positive results have led to the launch of a clinical study that is now running in Denmark, being expanded later in 2018 to Germany and the UK. Let me dive a little bit in. A prerequisite for doing this is that we do have drugs that are good at the market. I know that the industry wants to show that it is so important to get new drugs, which I guess it is. However, we have fantastic cancer drugs on the market. And I just showed you some here. It's just the 10 of the most used ones. You will see from the numbers that we are talking about drugs that are used in daily practice, and we are saving patients on a daily basis. We need to remember that. The problem is that we need to find the responsive patient. And I'll just show you a couple that I think is interesting, and that's here at the top. Revlimid is a relatively new, I think it's the 8th or the 9th most sold drug in the world. That drug is actually a derivative of thalidomide. If you remember, back in the 50s, we had a catastrophe with thalidomide. It's a derivative, but it just shows that we have drugs, and we have had them for years, that are highly efficient. On the other side, you have Xeloda. That's actually a compound that's called 5-FU among friends, 5-fluorouracil, that was introduced in 1964. It's selling, and we are using it in daily practice. The problem, again, is that we need to find the patients. The drugs are there. Then the clinical trial that I mentioned to you that we have launched, we are looking at a patient population having colorectal cancer in the latest stage, meaning that they have what we call metastatic disease. The disease has spread from colon, in most cases to the liver, sometimes to the lungs. This is what we see when we get a patient in. Here we have a patient. Well, it's a CT scan of a patient. And what you see here, this is the liver. That big thing up here, that's the liver. This is a patient in a desperate situation. The dark spots, that is metastasis coming from colon. What we do is that we take a needle biopsy, a small tissue sample, and expand that, as we showed in the movie, to thousands of small microtumors. These microtumors that you see here, they will grow outside the patient, and exactly as it happens in the patient. You will see here within a few days, they will grow. Then we will treat them. We will try to find the treatment, the single drug or the combination of drugs that will kill the tumor. And that's what you see down here. Here we have added a drug that worked. The tumor is sensitive. You will see we have stabilized the disease, and at the end, this tumor will simply fall apart. Now, with regard to these microtumors, we have made a very thorough investigation together with academics and clinicians to show that they correspond to the tumor in the patient. And we have done that by genetically characterizing, by proteomic, and with regard to cell types. And what you see here is such a microtumor. It looks pretty complex, and it is, because we have captured the whole environment around the around the tumor with regard to the different cell types, immune cells, and what have you. So these are the ones that we test our drugs against. And who this is the This is the process. The patient comes in, and we have a small tissue sample. This is actually a little bit bigger, so you can see it. You can't even see the needle biopsies. But then that is expanded, as we showed in the movie, into thousands of microtumors, and we tested against a number of standard treatments, combinations, and also novel investigational drugs. And you will see this comes up, and then this is what we present to the oncologist. We say, this is the scale. In this case, you should pick FOLFIRI, which is a combination of 3 drugs, and offer that to the patient. Now, who is actually doing it for us. Well, this is these nice gentlemen. The trial is running in 4 different sites. It's a multinational trial. We run it in Copenhagen at Bispebjerg/Rigshospitalet, and we run it at University Clinic Eppendorf, Hamburg, and in Vejle in Denmark, and then at Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham. A very important other partner is Europa Colon. This is the biggest patient organization within colorectal cancer. And we see, obviously, the patient as a key player in their treatment. So, and when we have an advisory board, and I should say that our chairman of the board is here today, so you can ask Niels questions about the trial and the technology. When a patient comes in, the patient will be examined with a number of technologies. We are not replacing them. We are supplementing. So obviously, the patient will, the physician will go through the patient's history, pathology, biochemistry, that's blood samples. We will do scanning, normally CT, but sometimes PET scanning, and we also do genetic and proteomic profiling. What IndiTreat does is to fill in the gap, fill in a functional gap that will tie these technologies together. So we believe that IndiTreat will become an indispensable tool in that armory that the oncologists use on every patient coming in. Let me just give you some key messages with regard to IndiTreat. First of all, it identifies the treatment that most efficiently kills your tumor. Well, hopefully you guys do not have a tumor. Nevertheless, colorectal cancer is the most diagnosed cancer in Europe. The next is that if we dive a little bit deeper, IndiTreat will generate from a small tumor sample thousands of 3D microtumors and expose them to available drug treatments. Lastly, the IndiTreat complements uniquely the existing oncology care procedures. Now, we plan to launch IndiTreat in 2020, and we believe that we are nicely underway. Here are the different steps we need to go through, and I'll just present to you. The first one, I hope that you have grasped that 70% of the patients do not respond to the treatment we offer them. So that's the problem, and the solution, obviously, is IndiTreat that will match cancer drugs, great drugs that are there, with the responsive patient. Said in another word, IndiTreat is a functional matchmaker. The target is big. The European cancer diagnostic market is about $5 billion in 16, and it will grow to twice that size before 2024. Competition. Obviously, there is competition. The way in which we handle that is that we have a strong IP-issued patent protection. We are supported by, as I've showed you, a very competent international clinical trial, and we are supported by this clinical trial. And what we do is that we measure the endpoint of the growth of these microtumors. With regard to the team, 2cureX was born into hospitals. From day one, we were in the hospital. We actually started in a basement at Bispebjerg Hospital just to be there, to be where the patients are, where the oncologists are. And we have continued that. Now we've got up into the light. And we are now at hospital in Hamburg, and we will later in the year have a site in Birmingham. The team is, you can see here, this is the management team. We have added Martin van den Linden, some is here today, to help us earn money. We have been good at burning them. Now he will earn them for us. And we have an experienced board of directors where our chairman, Paul-André Benz, is here as well, that you can talk with in the breaks. The last issue is financials. How is 2CureX doing with regard to financial? We think we're doing quite well. We went through a successful IPO 24th of November 17, and we have been granted 3 million euros from the EU. And lastly, we believe that with this, we'll be able to roll out IndiTreat in 2020. Let me at the end just show you what kind of achievements we have made. As I said, we went public, and that was on Nasdaq First North in November, and we raised 1.8 million euros as we had planned. We expanded the management team with a commercial officer in January, that's Martin. And we launched the IndiTreat clinical trial in colorectal cancer. And in February, we had enrolled 10 patients, and the trial is running according to plan. We secured a 3 million euro grant from the EU. And actually, this morning, we just came out with that we already have 1.5 of those in the bank. They arrived as the first payment from the EU. So what should you expect from us in the coming period? So when we show up here next time, we will work on communication. I have to admit that these months, being a listed company, we have concentrated on getting the trial running, on getting the management team expanded, and live like a listed company. We haven't done that much with communication. Now we're here, and we will really intensify that and professionalize that over the period coming. Further, we will register IndiTreat as a CE marked device, and we will also have 2CureX ISO 13485 registered in 2018. We will expand into further oncology centers in Germany, United Kingdom, and Sweden. We will finalize the clinical trial in colorectal cancer next year. And finally, we will launch the product of IndiTreat in 2020. And with that, I thank for your interest.
Well, thank you, Ole. I think being that the presentation was in English, I will do the questions in this session in English as well. Is that
fine?
all right?
Any language? Well, maybe not any language.
If you have questions, please raise your hand. I'll start with a few. There's always some here. I'll ask one first, and then we have Ulf and Fredrik with the microphones. Thank you, Ole. We saw some numbers on the different types of cancer up here. Do you have an estimate of how big the total market that you're aiming for is, in fact?
The total market is, no surprise, for colorectal cancer, it's huge. In Europe, we will diagnose next year 500,000 patients with colorectal cancer. And we have estimated that with this specific technology, this specific test, it will probably be between 7 and 10 billion Swedish. That's the market for this test.
And also, finances. Oh, am I still on here? Yep. 3 million euros from the EU, 1.8 from the shareholders. How long does that last? Is that until 2020? Further, shorter?
Yes. We believe that the funds we have will be sufficient to run the clinical trial and to prepare for market launch. Then at market launch, we'll probably go out and ask for additional funds, going through a re-emission simply to expand into further markets. The first markets we will do will be Denmark, Sweden, Germany, and the UK. But subsequently, we will go into further European markets.
Okay, we had a question down here. Yep.
Oh. Thank you. Hello. Hi, Mats Jonsson, Lund, Sweden. Thank you for a very good presentation. I just wonder, what is the improvement of the patients who will get response to the therapy with your system?
In essence, we want to push the group that is insensitive to the treatment into the sensitive part. So if you look at how these patients are doing, we actually have a subset of patients that are doing very well. And we just need to make that match. So we will see an improvement in the progression-free survival, and we will also most likely see an improvement in the overall survival. Obviously, the later stage the patients are in, so if we are looking at metastatic cancer, the more difficult it is to cure the patient.
Thank you. Let's say, but I still wonder, what can you measure that one? Because today there is a 70% non-responsive patients. How many will be responsive after using your system? Yes,
so I showed you a number saying that in 58% of the cases, we will be able to find an effective treatment. And that should be compared to the 30. That is the historical number. And I should say another thing is that a very important part of this is that we believe and we know there are some great drugs out there. We shouldn't forget that. But there are new drugs coming in. These will be part of the test as well. So it could be that we can go beyond the 58%, which we hope.
Thank you. Good luck.
We got another question over here. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Michael Larsen. My question is, what is the revenue model? How will you make money in the company? Is it per patient or what is it?
Yes, the model is that we will ask for a fee for each patient. So that will be, and that's actually one of the challenges, one of the tasks for Martin, is that in the different markets there are different models, there are different reimbursement models. In some markets there is a large private payer community, others they are not, and that's simply what we are dealing with at the moment and preparing for.
Yes, a starting point, who will you ask the fee from?
Depends on the country. In Denmark it will be some of the public hospitals that pay, that's part of that. In Germany, for instance, there is a large population of private payers or insurers. And in the UK you have the NICE system. So if you get in there, then it's a public payment. So it depends on the market.
Mm-hmm. And when will you expand to these markets? What markets are first and last?
Yeah, the first markets, that's our home market, Denmark, and it's Sweden, and then it's Germany and the UK. And very importantly for sort of our marketing effort, that will go through these hospitals. So we have some really well-established, well-known oncologists on board, and they will actually present that in the marketplace. They won't be the salespeople, but they will present that this is a valuable technology. So those will be the first, but then we will expand into other European markets. We've decided that we wait with the US. It's a little bit big hurdle for a small company like us. We have got some askings from Asia, and we may look into that.
More questions from the audience? Gentleman down here.
Ole Norfang, Copenhagen. What is your product? Is it a kit, or is it the people making the test, or what is it?
The product is a service today. So we have test labs in these hospitals where samples are sent. Because we want to have complete control. There's, beyond running the test, there's a whole data management. We have now about 900, or actually a little bit more patients in our database with everything from pathology, biochemistry, scanning, how outcome, all that material will be used when we present the data. So all that data manipulation will always be done in 2cureX.
Thank you.
More questions? Who are the main competitors going forward?
Yeah, there are there are definitely competitors. I mean, you should be nervous if there are no competitors. And we have a competitor in Germany called 2CureX. We have one in Pittsburgh in the US, Helomix. And that's probably the prime competitors. They are not doing it exactly the same way as we do, but they are running a functional test, because that's the important thing. We simply look at whether the tumor grows and we kill it. So those will be the ones that are...
Yeah, that was, of course, my follow-up question. What gives you the edge over these? Or what makes you different, at least?
Yeah, because I think, as mentioned, we are not kicking the other technologies out. Because, I mean, an oncologist will use everything that he has on the shelf. And so ours is supplementing what's there in that it's a functional test. We look at the growth. We are not measuring a genetic profile, a proteomic profile. We are measuring how the cells actually grow and how we kill them. So that's a different readout. You could say it's the final readout when the tumor is challenged. So it will supplement what already is used today.
You're one of the newer companies on the stock exchange as a listed company, listed last year in November on Aktietorget. How would you...
Nasdaq
sorry, Nasdaq First North, my bad. How has the reception been?
Actually, it was great.
I've got to make sure, remember right, listed at 8 krona, is that correct? Around?
Oh, that question. Oh,
yeah.
Yes, no, well, we listed at 7.8. And now, in essence, my job is to run the company and get the clinical trials up. But I have to admit that sometimes I'm also looking at the share price. And it's been a little bit difficult, but I think, I mean, actually, one of the activities that we will embark on now is communication. Because I said in the beginning, we haven't been good at communicating. Probably a lot of you guys have never heard of us. That's a problem. And I think that's simply what we want to tell the story. We want to go out in the media and be at these sort of presentations. Because it's obviously a great story.
Well, you're welcome in my studio one of the coming
Oh,
weeks or months.
Thank you.
Give Ole a hand. Thank you so much, Ole.